I've got a 4% best bet in the Duke Baylor game. I also have a 5% college basketball max bet that's up on my page at wagertalk.com. You see it right there on the screen, wt.buzz/AT. But a 4% play that I'm going to give out for free today, that I'm going to be at, that I'm already dressed accordingly for, is the Duke Baylor game at Madison Square Garden. You know, I bet a lot of the games I go to because I pick the games I go to, oftentimes based on what I'm going to bet. This one I've had planned for a while. Big game down in New York City, but after the weekend, I cannot help but jump in with Baylor here. The way that this all worked out. So Baylor 9-0 going into the weekend, they get throttled by Michigan State. Another neutral court game where they really didn't get off the bus. They were down early, down huge, and it was their first loss of the season. But let's tip the cap a little bit to Michigan State. They shot 66.7%. They were a team that, in my opinion, was due a bunch of positive regression. They seemed to get it all at once, all in that Baylor game, and just kind of went up huge and never looked back. So I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna dock Baylor as many points as I maybe normally would for a loss like that because of the spot it happened in, the fact that it was in a neutral up in Detroit, and Michigan State just sort of had their day. It's very reminiscent of a game Baylor played last year, early in the season, where they got destroyed by Marquette in almost the same fashion, like quickly down 30, never in the game, a total just awful performance. And they quickly bounced back from that last year with a nice win. I believe it was over Gonzaga. So there's precedence for these types of things early in the season. The early season ugly loss, first loss of the year, and then bouncing back. And that's what I think could happen with Baylor here. Duke, the money here and the line move is not at all surprising to me. This is Duke at Madison Square Garden. This is a team that the betting public wants to get in with. And when the betting public saw this open at -1.5, it is totally unsurprising that they jumped all over it and moved this with maybe some sharp money as well. But this moved quite a bit, all the way up to 3. And these early season, like made for TV one-off neutral court games, I tend to not get involved with, but I will when I feel like I'm getting extra points for no reason other than the market deciding that Duke is the side here. And so for that reason, I jumped in with Baylor at +2.5, thinking that might be the peak of the number. And here we are sitting +3, which I still think is a fantastic bet. This Baylor team can score 88.4 points per game. That's eighth nationally. 51.7 percent shooting from the field. That's seventh nationally. Jacoby Walter is their leading scorer, and he's improved their defense because last year Keontae George played no defense. Walter, the freshman, has come in and been an excellent defender along with being a good scorer. It's something that Baylor is currently improving on, and I think will continue improving on this year because they were dead last in the Big 12 last year in defensive efficiency. And that's not, you go back to the championship team that Baylor had a couple years ago. Scott Drew had a top 25 defensive team. There's no doubt in my mind he already has Baylor playing better defense and will continue to have them playing better defense this year. Listen, there's a lot to like about Duke. I don't have a ton of negatives to say about a Duke team that's a top 25 team and is one of the better teams in college basketball, just like Baylor is. But I will point out their struggles on the road and or just away from Cameron Indoor under Shire. Last year it was a huge issue for them. Team really, really struggled pretty much anywhere outside of Cameron Indoor in the early portion of the season. And this year we already see Duke 0-2 on the road. And they did win a neutral against Michigan State, but still 6-1 at Cameron Indoor, 0-2 on the road, and we're getting them, off of their home court here. So when I break that all down, it's a game that I think is going to be a great game between two legitimate top 20 basketball teams. But I think we have some nice value with Baylor here. I make this more of a pick. So at 2.5 or 3, that's across a couple key numbers in college basketball. I think Baylor on the neutral court in New York City tonight is a great bet. I like them to bounce back from the Michigan State debacle, and I made it a 4% play. So Baylor +2.5, 4% play for me at Madison Square Gardens.